1, 2,
Standing
go.
by. You know it.
Here we go.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
and we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't need to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. You'll notice we got 4 strong again, and this is the first time this has happened. We've had the same guest 2 shows in a row, so please welcome back Brian Newberry.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. I didn't realize I was the first back-to-back, so thank
First ever back-to-back.
Out here breaking glass ceilings.
you.
It's more of a thatched roof. It's all good.
It's been so fucking long since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
I know. Days.
So many
Hours.
hours. Yeah.
And if you're streaming in, you'll notice that one of us is not sitting in an office, but is sitting in an automobile.
Traffic.
Rapid.
Where do you have traffic at 8:35 at night?
So if you'd have to be familiar with Little Rock's like infrastructure, but
Okay.
in order to get to my neighborhood, you have to get to the end of I-630, right? It's where it comes to an end at and dumps out on. So it's kind of a freeway. It's like a 4-lane that then dumps out onto a suburb, right?
Yeah.
So there is still traffic.
Okay.
Like where I'm at, because it's kind of a main thoroughfare. But give me 5 minutes and there will be no more traffic.
Okay.
For those of you who are watching, I do apologize for the fact that I am recording from a vehicle right now. I got a last minute work thing about 5 o'clock today that I had to attend. So I did so and got out at like 3 minutes till. So I'm doing good.
So you know what's going to happen when he gets home? We're going to watch him go into the house and then strip to change into his podcasting clothes, right?
Hey, whatever it does, whatever I have to do to get extra like listens or views on the stream. If I got to get naked, I'll do it for the team.
All right. The
the
scariest
gram.
thing is this is some of the best audio we've had from you.
It is really clear. It's interesting how clear that mic is in your car.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, well, so
Thanks, Nissan. Please send us money.
Nissan send us money. Yeti send us all new mics. So
Beat the shit out of Casper mattress. Jesus, yeah.
We could
I
beat
don't
the
think
shit
they
out of
advertise as much though anymore on podcasts.
No, I haven't
Yeah.
seen as much.
I haven't seen
Or
as
heard
much.
as much.
I think Helix is the new mattress.
Oh
podcast.
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same concept.
And,
it comes in a box and then magically expands.
Yep.
Okay.
Unfolds to glory. That and let's see.
I really enjoy a box that expands.
Yeah, a box that expands is always nice.
Yeah.
Bill's face.
Hey, I almost made a glory hole joke when you were talking about expanding to glory. So
I'm glad there's another use of that word. It's one that I don't use as much.
Okay. So anyway, we are reconvening after we all attended Heroes Convention, HeroesCon in Charlotte, which took place from this past weekend, June 14th through June 16th. Came from various areas of the country to coalesce, and it was a good con. We've had 2 years where things went wrong. First in 2022, Steve got the COVID. And then in 2023 was when I had a gout flare up and ended up in a wheelchair for a night. And I only had one day on the con floor. That was it.
Yeah, it was too unfortunate.
This year was very different. Everything went okay. Yeah. And
there was no unsolved mystery marathons. Nothing.
Yeah. And whether people listening to the show realize this or not, it was not until this past Friday, June 14th, that Steve and Caleb finally met in person.
And boy, did they!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got a full bear hug. Like I got a.
You got a koala bear hug. You got legs wrapped around you.
He hugged you hard he went past you. You know,
I absorbed him inside. There you go. It was just
it was so hard. He just went past you. Yeah.
It was just wonderful meeting you in person. Like, I mean, hey, I've known you for like 5 years now almost.
Okay.
And this is the first time.
Okay. No, Caleb's parked in his car.
Like Caleb's going to sit there for the next
3 hours. This is just where I'm going to live now. No, so before I'm going to go up and transfer, but I think that people who listen to podcasts, they don't always understand, or they take for granted that they're hearing our voices all together, and they assume that we all are either in the same room or we know each other, or we're doing that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that we all met through the magic of the internet, that we all we bonded over comics, and we formed this community. And that like before 2 years ago, I'd never met Bill, although we have been on we do this constantly, and I see and talk to Steve every day. But even Brian, we met through the EOC organizations. And I remember the first time I got to meet all of you in person, right? After knowing you for years and developing this relationship and having these amazing conversations about art and literature and film and music and everything that we, the ephemera of life that we get to enjoy. But there is that moment where we get to touch, and there's that physical connection, Q Madonna song. But it's magical. It really is. And it's wonderful to actually get to experience that, to put my hands on my friend, right? To put my arms around him. It was a beautiful moment, and it's something I will never forget, just like I'll never forget the time I met Bill for the first time, or Brian for the first time, or any of the other people that we're in this amazing community with. And that we just really take for granted how much the internet has put us in connection, has tethered us to human beings, to lives all across the United States and the world. But to actually be able to be in the same room is something really magical.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And it's one of those things where, when you meet someone organically, like out in the world, you make that face-to-face connection usually first, but through the internet and being able to, and the podcasts that we've been on and all of that, like we've been able to get to know each other over the past 5 years, virtually without ever having to meet. But I do get to see your face. I get to talk to you every day and all of that. But there's really nothing that beats just an in-person, like, I am in your presence. This makes me extremely happy that I am in your presence meeting you for the first time. And Jason, also my husband, got to meet you on Friday as well. He came in to do his one day at the con, which usually constitutes him standing in front of Janet Leigh's table for about 2 hours talking about gardening and Tennessee and North Carolina politics, which is really great. But even he was so happy that he got to meet you as well, because you're somebody I've talked about talking to for years, and now he's finally got to actually meet you as well. So it was it was just really amazing.
You shared it with us, and I'm going to put it on blast. It was funny that when you overheard him talking on the phone right before the con. He's like, "Yeah, no, my husband's boyfriends are coming over."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But that really is, I mean, like my husband, right? Roger, even though he's met Brian, but he's not met Bill or Steve. Like my husband Roger knows you guys, right? He knows you guys, and we talk and we have conversations, and he recognizes your voices. I just walked through the living room, and he's like, "Oh, hey, tell him I said hi," right? Because
I'm not gonna lie. My favorite part was when Roger goes, "Oh, look at Skinny Brian." I was like, "Yes."
Yes, yeah. That was.
You got a
it was
lot
just
to
like,
be
good
proud
question
of
for
there,
me.
son. You got a lot
You
to be proud
absolutely
of.
do. But even our families know each other. Like I know Jason. Like I know all of your spouses or significant others, and because we are
Caleb
part
has
of this,
met my brother and gotten drunk with him.
I have gotten drunk with your brother.
Really?
That was fun. But it's just really cool, right? And it's great that we've built this community and we have these connections, and that they do translate into in-person gatherings. And that is my favorite part about this, man. It's because that's the power of this thing that we all love, right? It brings us all together, and it again, through the, as we all do our hand signals, the magic of the internet, we get to do cool stuff, man. And
Yeah.
like my daily life is really predicated on the relationships that I've built and the friendships that I've built through this, and getting to, man, just to geek out in person and to hear your voice in real time is stupid fun. It's just I feel like a little kid on Christmas morning.
Definitely. I felt the same way. I was just sort of like, where is Caleb coming? Is Caleb coming? Do I get to meet Caleb? So because we were hanging out by the was it the Mystery Machine, which just seems to be kind of the place to see and be seen.
Oh, that's because
Caleb
Echo One tried to kill
by
us.
the Mystery Machine. I go, that means they're by Echo One. Fuck that motherfucker.
So I got to hear this story for the first time. I did not know this. So apparently some people were attacked by evil Echo One a couple of years ago.
All three of us
crossing the street in
All
Charlotte.
three of us, yeah.
So
no, they almost run us off the road. I drove
Yep.
in 2 years ago, and Bill, Caleb, and I stayed Saturday or Sunday that night. And we're going down to get barbecue, the three of us, and having dinner. And Ecto One was in a lane that was disappearing, and that motherfucker was just coming over, and he saw us and did not care. He started honking on his horn. He just literally tried to run us off the road. And ever since
there's
then,
a ghost emergency somewhere, clearly.
Yeah, my ass. Ever since then, every time I see it, I'm like, fuck Ecto One.
Had no compunction about scooting us out of the way.
Dang. Well, it would be the perfect time to take revenge because it was, immobile inside the convention center.
Oh,
So
trust me, my wheels were
slash
spinning.
those
That's what I had
tires.
to do. And then the little Prius Ecto One over there.
Yeah, what was
What the hell is that?
I didn't know if that was like a thing from the new show or from the new.
What? I mean, Steve,
movie?
you've seen them. Was it? No? Okay.
No, it's just somebody. It's Toyota's offering the new Ecto One package apparently for Priuses if you buy them. But I don't know. I guess if you can convert anything into an Ecto adjacent car, then I guess a Prius is just as good as anything else. But yeah, no. This con. One of the things that I did hear from Mr. Southern, who is one of the Heroes Aren't Hard to Find gentlemen, was that this was actually the largest of HeroesCon in terms of not just people attending, but also guests, vendors and exhibitors. Basically, just the highest attended in HeroesCon's 42-year history. Although, because it was so large, because they take up the entire convention center, there wasn't a point where I felt like I was over, that it was crowded.
Oh, for God's sake, no.
No, I didn't
there
feel
was
any more crowded this year than it did last. The only thing I noticed was Scotty and Daniel Warren Johnson's lines were longer than they were previously. And then the auction, Caleb and I were sitting up front for the part of it I could stand to be in. But when I got up to leave, that back was packed. And usually it's not. Like a lot of times we're back there just hanging out and it's very empty. And everybody was shoved in back there.
Well,
we were spilled out. Bill and I were spilled out into the hall area where the escalators were.
Yeah, and usually that's not happening.
Well, and what's interesting about that is they actually had extra space for the auction this year because they had the whole other side room that was just set up for the bar. They were trying to alleviate
very few
some
people
issues.
were in.
Yeah, like no one.
We were there, yeah.
Yeah, no one wanted to be in there. They just wanted to go in there and get the alcohol and come back and talk, right? And watch the art and watch the auction,
Yeah.
which
And
causes a
get yelled at.
problem because people are being loud and, people can't hear
Oh.
the auctioneers and like it's an issue. But
Not one of them did Quiet Coyote, and if they had, at least anyone under the age of 40 would have just gushed. But no. It was just a bunch of like,
I
"Hey,
have comments
everybody,
about the
keep it
auction
down."
that are not appropriate for the call, but Caleb had me crack it up at a couple points before I left.
That auction was it was interesting, but it was, what was it? Because you guys stayed until 1 a.m. on Saturday night.
I think you guys just
Sunday
out about
morning.
midnight, didn't you, for pancakes, Caleb?
yeah, we did. So we left out there for because we always go to the midnight diner. So we dipped out to go eat pancakes about midnight. So we waited until like the big ticket items that we were wanting to see. Because so out of the three of us who normally do this show, I'm the OA art nerd, right? Like maybe not the biggest one in the world, but like I enjoy this. So I was very interested because a lot of times, and people don't, I think, give this enough credit, but the HeroesCon auction can absolutely put an artist on the art map, right? We saw that with Jamie Jones 2 years ago. No one really knew who Jamie was, but then Scotty Young went ape shit over Jamie's work and bought a piece, which, by the way, is hanging up in Scotty Young's studio right now, right? Like he sees every day while he's making art. And it put Jamie Jones on the map, so to speak. People are big fans, right? So I really like to see who these artists are, especially some of the lesser names, and to see what their pieces go for and what they're doing, because that really does have an impact on the overall OA market to some degree. Not as much as it used to, but it does to some degree, which I think is really neat. So we waited until the two big draws that were being auctioned off that night kind of came about, and that was the Scotty Young piece. He did a Wolverine and a Deadpool piece, which had everybody chit chatting, and then the Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers piece. Now, if you're not familiar with the cost of OA or the price of OA now, let me put it this way: Daniel Warren Johnson was selling 8x5s of Transformer drawings for $500 and $600. All right, 8x5s. The piece that he submitted to the auction was a 36 by some odd piece. It was like poster board size. It was huge. It was ginormous, and it went for
Wasn't it 11?
Yeah, I think it went for 11,000, 10 or 11,000.
I think that's what I heard.
The Scotty Young piece, and it set a record, right? The most expensive piece that had been auctioned off there. And then the Scotty Young Wolverine Deadpool piece came up, and it went for over 15 grand.
Yeah.
All right. That is insane. That is absolutely insane to me.
Okay, so while we had those pieces, I'm not going to call any particular piece out, but there were at least two that should not have been out there because they weren't even half done.
Yeah.
Because they do a Sunday auction as well for the pieces that aren't at that level. And I'm like, there were multiple Sunday pieces that should have been on the Saturday, and some of those Saturday that honestly, they should have, just to protect the integrity of the auction, just been like, yeah, we can't accept this. Just because, like, if I went and drew a stick figure and said, put this in the auction, that don't mean they should put it in the auction.
Yeah.
Brian, were they name artists?
One of them.
One of them was?
Yeah, one of them was.
Okay.
Yeah.
But besides those two big pieces, I get there. We had a Comics Discourse dinner right before then because Hassa and Brian and I didn't get a chance to sit and be together until then. And I pop in and Caleb's like, I know what piece you're going to like. And I had no idea. And I walk and I turn around and I go, Asgardian Storm. He's like, yep. So there was an awesome Asgardian Storm up there, but she was like 3/4 of the way through the auction. I was like, I ain't making it through. I ain't making it for that. So I don't know what she ended up going for, but it looked good.
There was one magic, but it was a very kind of subdued. It was magic, like turned around from the back, and I mean, the sword was there, but it wasn't predominant. So it just the composition was not great on it. But there was one magic I thought you'd go for as well.
I missed her when I was walking through the wall. Yeah. Or I almost did bid on the June Brigman Power Pack, which last year she did one as well. and it was the whole team. And this piece looked almost exactly the same. It's same pose, everything. Last year, it got in a bidding war and went for like 700. And I was sitting next to our buddy Arnie, and I almost grabbed his number because at 300 it was going twice, and I was like, I did not expect that. And somebody got it, but I was like, nah, I can't do it. And then that Dazzler that was early, I turned to Arnie. I'd bid for that, but there's enough queers in here that love this many gays. Somebody loves Dazzler. I'm not getting a bidding war for that. Bill, did you see the guy walking the floor that had the Dazzler concert tour from 1981 shirt walking around the floor?
I caught that shirt. I did see that shirt.
I thought it was funny.
I missed it.
Yeah.
The Popeye piece was my favorite piece.
I think my favorite in theory, if not execution, was the Charles Vest Swamp Thing. Mainly because of the other visitors of the swamp, including Pogo. In conception more than I think execution. I thought it was clever.
Yeah, I like Janet Leigh's piece because I got to see it beforehand. But it was really what was funny talking to Jason about it. He was like, I actually think the one that she did for me was a lot better. Because she hadn't drawn Delirium before. It was it's just a, I guess like 8x10 Delirium picture. But she hadn't drawn Delirium before Jason had first commissioned it from her a couple of years back, and he just loves that more than the one that was up for the auction. But I do remember one I did not like, and that was a Hulk.
I wasn't crazy about it. Yeah, I was in the same boat. It made me sad because I was rooting for.
We had conversations about that one before the auction.
Yeah. It was executed well. It's one of those pieces you're like, okay, like this is nice. This took talent and their skill, and it's objectively good. But there's not a lot of life to it, right? There's not a lot of magic in there. There's that art thing that's just not speaking. It's just kind of derivative, and it was just there, and like obviously the person who made it had talent, but it just did not.
Like the details are there. The details are there. Like the emotion is there, but it's not. It wasn't the right emotion. Wasn't the right detail. I don't know. It was just there was something a little off about it, which I didn't enjoy. I didn't see anything as unique as the embroidered piece from last year. That was really cool.
That was interesting. The closest was the glasswork this year because I'm big on glasswork. I occasionally do some glass art, but it was mosaic tiles of the opening of the Batman 66 bat signal. Did you guys went by their booth, didn't you?
Yep.
Did you see it?
I didn't.
Oh, they had an awesome Doctor Strange giant mosaic glass tile window, but that thing was like $4,000. I was like, the skill that went into it was a lot, but I was just like, yeah, that's not something going in somebody's carry-on to get.
Yeah, how are you getting that home? That's the question. It's like,
I'm hoping that comes with free shipping.
Speaking of how are you getting it home, I will got to say, since we're talking about the art auction, I got to give a big shout out to our friend Arnie, who won 2 pieces at the auction and then turned around and gifted them to me. And I thought that was now he doesn't know he gifted to me. He just asked if I'd bring them home and then ship him to him. But as far as I know, they're in my Atoya, and I have ownership of them.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Arnie, for my beautiful Batwoman piece.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I will get them in the mail. He did not have his portfolio, but he did win 2 really, really cool pieces. I thought they were great. And I will be shipping them to Wisconsin to him.
Yeah, I got sent home with a piece for somebody local, our friend John O'Neill. He was not there, and somebody made him a piece and sent it with me. And I'm like, I don't have a portfolio, so I'm putting this in my luggage, and you pray. It ain't up to me. If it's damaged, it's your fault.
Actually, real quick, because we do have a few people who joined us. So we had Adam Anderson, who was at HeroesCon for one day and missed so much, but got what he hoped to accomplish. So that's great, because sometimes you need to go in with a mission. You got to have your plan. Yeah. Like, I want to do this. I want to see this guy. I want to sit on this panel. I want to talk to this creator. I want to find these issues. And
I agree with that, but also out of every major con I've been to, this was the one where I did the least amount of prep work.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but there was something very freeing about that. You know,
Y'all are taking the Brian philosophy of heroes. You just show up and hang out, and if you get something, you get something.
Yeah. So there was something. I still, I got the piles here. But,
You got a few things. You got a few things.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's not like Baltimore. There have been times when I've driven to Baltimore where, I had to like shift stuff in the car because I was worried it was leaning too much to one side. You can only,
Bill, he's about to call bullshit on one of us, so I'm not sure.
What's that?
I'm calling bullshit on this one right here. That is not the Brian philosophy to no. So Brian and I go way back. We have a history of this, right? This idea of, my philosophy is just show up and hang out, and if you get something, you get something. That's bullshit. Brian, you don't do that. What you do is you show up and you go, hey, Bill, Steve, Caleb, what do you want? Because I'll find it for you. And he will go, this man will dedicate his entire being for that con to
definitely.
finding what you are looking for.
Bill, we never found that fucking Crystar.
We never found the Crystar, but I felt comforted in knowing I had agents. Looking for Crystar.
Like
it just surprised me because that seemed to be like the kind of action figure you would find.
Yeah,
maybe at an upcharge, but I was surprised that and the harder to find McFarlane Superpowers toys. I was really surprised.
Instead, it was just sectars everywhere. Sectars.
Yeah, there was something.
Everywhere.
We didn't plug you guys into this. There was something about sectars that the first stop that we had pre-con was at Sailfish, and they had
Sailfish in Winston-Salem.
Nacelle, who does were the people behind Icons Unearthed and the Toys That Made Us and all that stuff. They have a toy imprint now, and they had these beautiful sectar recreations that were for sale in Sailfish. And then when we got to the con, it was just like it just seemed to be a lot of sectar stuff. It was strange.
Any vendor that had toys had sectar toys.
What are we down to? Nine issues to go?
Because of Captain Bloodhound, who I was just like, if I find it, I'll find it. He's like, no, we'll hunt for it. I am now 9 issues away from I need to double check, but 9 issues away from a full run of Marvel Comics Presents. Because I'd just be sitting there talking and be like, hey, have you checked over there? I'm like, no, dude, it's fine. He's like, no, we'll get it. Like militant about it. It was great.
Yeah. Caleb, I got a couple of local cons with dollar bins and stuff. So can you just send me what issues you're looking for?
And we're finishing this fucker at Baltimore.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
And Caleb, the other thing I do.
Yep.
Omnibus.
No.
You guys found that one vendor with the like 50% off, or
no, they weren't that cheap, but he got this at a good deal. This one actually was above 50% off.
Yeah.
And I told him to get it, and then you two came up and it's like, yeah, you really should get that.
I got Captain Britain books too.
So Caleb,
Peer.
I didn't tell you this, but Sunday I went to the con at 5:00 and walked by that booth, and that fucker had a sign, 50% off what the back ticket is. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting that Prince book for Caleb, and I'm getting that Avengers The Gathering for Caleb, and I'm shipping them. I go in and I ask, I said, is this just for the stuff on the back wall? Everett, no, just the back wall. I'm like, that's just shit. That's the stuff nobody wants. And I walked away. Yeah. I'm like, you have fun hauling those big ass books home. I'd be taking them.
But they did have
militant. I was like, fuck you.
I think that guy had the omnibus like discounted more.
I checked at 4:30 on that Avengers The Crossing, and it was still $80. I'm like, I can get that online cheaper right now.
I won't pay $8 for that. That's the low point.
Not The Crossing, The Gathering. The Gathering, not The Crossing.
Right. The Crossing is
it's not that much better, but it's better enough that I like it. And I'm like, Caleb needs this.
I am super, super excited about reading the second best Jamie at Marvel, though. That's going to be fun.
Okay. We have a couple other people who also were at the con. Mark Miner, Quiet Coyote hushes everyone. Yes, it does, or usually does. Mark was also there at the con on Friday and Sunday, and found a very reasonable priced Sandman.
Yeah.
He was,
Very
Sandman
cool.
Collection is the 2-volume set. He got the first volume for a really good price.
Yeah.
And then we also got Felipe Garza. Hello.
What
Sup?
up?
What's up? He
So,
says.
Flippo, is he on a plane somewhere?
Probably.
Maybe.
I think he's going.
I
to
hope he
Florida
has this
now.
on at full maximum volume so everyone around him could be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So my con started in the airport when Flippo got off the plane because he was connecting at my airport. So we had fun right from there.
Nice.
Connections.
I do want to say if Adam, who was on here a minute ago, if he's still watching, I would love to know what his mission was, right? Because he didn't say that in that comment. So he said, but he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. Adam, what was it that you wanted to accomplish? Like, we need to know, right? What were you doing there? So, was it comics? Was it art? Was it meeting people? So cosplay.
I came to know Adam from that online auction that I was doing every week when the shop was having it. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
So.
One of the things that I did not do this year, and I mentioned it to Bill, towards the end of Sunday, is that I did not take however many hours it usually takes to just start at 2000 and just walk up and down all of the Artist Alley aisles. I usually spend at least an hour and a half in Indie Island alone, just going up and down and, chatting with anybody, having them do their sales pitch, having them talk about their process or, why they're really excited about comics. And I just didn't have time to do that this year. I was doing other things. I had people to meet, people to find, books to dig through, that kind of thing, and panels, of course. Saturday was panel day. So did you guys, what panels did you guys all attend, if you attended any?
Well, I only attended one of them. I only went to the Howard Chaykin panel. There were several more that I thought about going to, but nothing that I just absolutely felt like I had to. And I was really just enjoying being on the floor. I had fun doing that. Just chit chatting with people, or leaving and going and hanging out and talking and going to get food and drinks and stuff like that. So, but the Howard Chaykin panel was the one I wanted to go to, and it was a fun panel. It was very informative. That's the second time I've been to a Howard Chaykin thing. I will say, I'm going to brag on myself. Like the first one I was actually moderating, and I was actually interviewing Howard Chaykin, which was super fun, right? It was kind of what I expected from Howard Chaykin. Like, he touched a little bit on history, and he let you know that he doesn't give a shit about people's opinions, and he's going to do what he wants to do and say what he wants to say, and that's just kind of it. He was very Chaykin. But he also got into a little bit of the history and a little bit of the process and his thought behind the work that he makes and stuff. And I thought that was incredibly interesting. And something I hadn't heard him speak about before. I guess to a degree I had. He starts talking about the way that he conceptualizes comics, right? And he's talking about it in a sense of almost like this comics with an X underground, like break the monotony of the big publishing companies and don't infantilize it and stuff. All stuff I've heard him talk about before, but he almost talked about it in a different way. He almost talked about it as if he was more of an acolyte of people like R. Crumb instead of Gil Kane, right? And so I actually got the chance to ask him about that. I was like, the way you talk about that is very much Robert Crumb, Peter Bagg, these kind of comics with an X stuff. What but we all know that throughout history, Gil Kane and R. Crumb did not like each other. Gil Kane did not have a lot of respect for R. Crumb. You can read about that in copious amounts of books. But I said, what drew you to that? And he said, honestly, location. Right? I was in New York and I needed a job. Right? And that's what got me in the door. And that was who hired me at 14 and brought me up in that. But he said, I respected those other people, right, for what they did for the the medium and the way they conceptualize comics. But I was more interested in telling these kind of stories, and I drew more like these people. And I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But it was neat hearing him talk about comics with the same type of fervor and the same kind of sensibilities as like Peter Bagg and maybe some of the R. Crumb acolytes and the indie comics, underground head shop comics. Even though I do think that he would think that those are probably a little bit more too infantilized than the stories he would want to tell as well. But I just thought that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you would think that a lot of comics with an X was infantilized. I think it was more just, the fact that they would push the envelope where, when you work for the big two, you basically are retreading established characters. There's only so much you can do and so far that you can push it before it has to go back to square one. And that was, I think, why he kind of moved away from that. But one interesting thing that I learned from Howard Chaykin, that was the first time I'd ever heard him speak. And then the next day, Bill and I got to go see him again at his Times Squared, and
which I never had any interest in before, and now I want to.
Now I want to read it. I want to find it
before. Yeah,
because they are going to be publishing an omnibus of Times Squared, so definitely I'm looking for that now. But he is a big Broadway queen. Like he loves his show tunes. He went right
from the con to seeing like Water for Chocolate on Broadway and something else because I talked to him.
Oh yeah,
but he gave us exchange numbers with him and started.
Actually, my friend Rob Stager and him they chat a lot. They chat a lot about such things.
And that was Bill's.
That was my question when I brought up about what because at Caleb's panel he name checked Follies by Stephen Sondheim. And then brought up Guys and Dolls and Frank Lesser. And then I asked him about what other composers. And we got, a very shaken response about Lerner Lowe being, the scores are great, but the books are shit. And it was pretty funny. It was fun.
But and he also apparently likes
composers after that kind of thing. Right. Yeah.
Well, apparently he likes the Spielberg version of West Side Story.
West Side Story, yes.
As opposed to the 60s, the classic film version of that. Because it was more true to New York and the spirit of New York, which is really interesting. It's very kind of a poetic way of thinking about it.
There's also touches on a project he has coming up about a version of Robert Moses who wins. Yeah, so... If you know about it's in the Ken Burn documentaries and some other resources about what a garbage human being Robert Mosley was. Look it up.
Yeah. There was also I attended it was a panel about whistleblowers, which is it's a graphic novel about 4 different people who sort of exposed or tried to expose and tell the world about what the Nazis were doing in Europe during World War II, tried to expose the Holocaust as it was happening, a lot of which fell on deaf ears. That was being presented by Mark Zaid, who consulted on the book and also wrote the foreword. But the interesting one, too, that I attend, and I attend these panels every time, is the LGBTQ panel. And it's a lot of times it has a very different feel. Brian Pittard.
I have never seen a consistent feel to it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's different every time, but we also have a lot of different moderators, and I think that kind of helps as well as just pulling together different people on the panel. This time around, there was Kayla E., Greg Rucka, Mayday Trip, as well as Ben
Crane. He cannot remember this guy's last name.
I can never remember his last name. I can't remember his last name to save my life. And hopefully he comes in and like yells at me when we have him on the show, and then I will never forget it. But it was a great discussion. I think it was really cool. It was, like usual, we've had Terry Moore on the panel before, so ostensibly cis heterosexual white men or have been on this panel before, but in a way of, explaining how their characters are now part of a sort of a queer canon, explicitly queer canon in comics, and how that has impacted their work and how those, characters or stories may be impacting, the general state of queer comics. But also this time we had some really great connections on that panel. Mayday and Kayla had some really
the
great
names you just heard, for the most part, will become guests or return.
Yes, guests. Hopefully, we'll have all of them on. We've had Mayday on before. Hopefully, they'll be joining us again.
You guys make it to the Claremont one?
No,
Did not.
they scare
I
me.
missed the Claremont.
I've been to Claremont panels in the last few years. And
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to hear.
they're interesting.
That's
I
he's
can go.
he's got a little bit more attitude from what I've heard of
Yeah.
late in the panels.
Oh no.
Old guy with foot problems here attends more panels than most. So I can just go over some of the, you mentioned the ones that we attended together. I also attended the back issue and tomorrow's panel. I say old guy, but I'm pretty sure I was the youngest person there.
I was laughing when you texted that too.
I'm the youngest one here.
But your picture only had like 2 other people in the room.
They covered some interesting topics, including the DC implosion and the book about it, which is co-written by my friend Keith Dallas. Who I can't believe we haven't had on the show. I really should have him on.
Make him call.
Yeah, and so there were interesting topics. But yeah, I was the youngin', I think. Maybe.
Did you guys stop by their booth?
Yeah, there wasn't anything I needed. You know,
yeah, I love their product, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
pass
at Baltimore they tend to cut the prices a little bit more, so I'm hoping on that. I also attended a Marvel editors in the '80s panel, whatever, and the Jimmy and Amanda panel. You know, Jimmy Palmiotti is always a treasure on the stage, so
national treasure.
That was great to go to.
Hey Bill, the editors in the '80s panel was Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio, Tom DeFalco, Renee was the however you pronounce her name. Carl Potts, who is quite the Silver Fox now.
Yeah,
and Terry Kavanaugh.
Did you have a panel with Shooter on it all?
No, I don't think I've ever been to a panel with Shooter. I've gotten an autograph from him.
Well, I've got stories. I can tell you where he spent the weekend.
Yeah, Jim Shooter is a soldier.
He gets to the bar at like 4:30 or 5. He don't leave till it closes.
And he stays in like we went there like for 2 different nights. One night he was on this side of the bar, and one night he was on this side of the bar. And
night 3, he was in the middle of the bar. I was there multiple nights. He was in the middle of the bar, and it was.
Was it through him that you learned what was in the mixed vegetables and the fruit salad?
And then the third night, he asked the lady at the bar about 4:35 if he could have this cheesecake first, and she's like, "Yes, we can bring you the cheesecake right now." It was kind of cute, but
I don't know how you people do it. I don't, I mean, I've done late nights when I've been in the host hotel, but
dude, I hit the wall during the auction, and there were several things on my nerves, and Caleb knows some of it. I'm like, I'm done. Yeah. I can't take it anymore, and I went up to my room, and I'm still recovering. It's Thursday night.
Well, so I will at the Westin. I will stay there as long as there are friends in the room, right? Because, and for me, it's just that, right? It is. I now go to
a real close friend for me to stay after a certain hour.
Well, for the most part, it is though, right? It is people that I'm very close to, and that's honestly what look, I could have gone. I spent too much money, but I could have gone and not spent a dime. I go to see my friends, right? I go to see you guys, present company, right? Because I know this is maybe the one time this year I'm going to get to be in the same room for you. And the same is true of people like our buddies over from EOC and that whole crew, or Scotty or Sanford Green, who I got to have some great conversations with over, while we were well into our cups, and just talk about life, right? Like I'm sitting there talking to Scotty Young, and he's asking me, he's like, "Hey, you graduated law school, right?" Because we know each other, and I was like, "Yeah." And so we're not even talking about comics; we're just talking about life and as kids. And the same with Sanford, and we're talking about just James Baldwin and all this really cool stuff at 1 a.m. over expensive drinks in a hotel bar.
Friday night, I was about to go to bed and get a text from Flippa. They're in the bar, and it's 10:30, 11. And I'm like, I was I had just taken my shirt off. I'm like, damn it, I'm here to hang out. Don't be a curmudgeon. Get your ass down there. And then we're there till 1 o'clock. And Caleb and I have a new comic or book we're coming up with, the Ohatmu gays, because we had
the gay hot move. It's the gay hot move.
We started doing gay education that we were asked about, and classifying every single person that was in our friends group of what
I'm kind of fixated on this
type they were.
I'm kind of fixated on this Vince's leather daddy.
What was my question, Bill? What was my question to him?
What?
Do you own a stitch of leather? And he was like, no.
But really,
he might not, but he's got the look.
But it's true. But it's always the soft-spoken ones you end up on your knees for. It really is.
We bothered some folks with their classification, and I was being polite. There were several edits, but I was still like, I got to do the politest. It's like,
yeah, I was a little surprised with Ray though, because I said pocket bear.
As soon as he said, Ray came up to me like a day or two later, and he goes, Bill said pocket bear. I was like, yeah, shit, yes. Bill. It was 12:30, and I was tired.
As long as you didn't call anybody a bridge troll, you're okay.
There were some bad ones I wanted to spit out, but I did not. And I'm not going to tell anybody nothing. Caleb and I were sharing a couple of looks.
We should back up and set the stage a little bit though. So our friend and our friends and co-host of the 11 o'clock comics, we're all there. Jason and Vince and Dap, and for some reason, Jason Wood especially is kind of fascinated by the idea of gay classifications, because he's asked me these questions before. He's like, so what is a bear, right? What is a twink? Right. So what is this body type?
Does the bear have to be with a twink? Was my favorite.
Yeah. So and Jason's a straight dude. So he's like, but I mean, so twinks have to date bears, right? You've got the big, and I'm like, no, like that's not a like. But and so again, it's just he's coming from a place of love and trying to understand this. So we're trying to explain this to him, and so we're talking about this classification. We're talking about bears and otters and cubs and this, that, and the other. And he was like, well, what's that guy? And I'm like, oh, that guy's he's a twunk, right? He's like, what the fuck? That's not an animal. And I'm like, well, like, no, not everything is an animal. Like, there's different body types and stuff. And so it was just, it just kind of blew his mind. And then they asked us what one guy was, and without missing beat, Brian goes, oh, he's a wolf. And it was just like, they all just like were like,
gasp.
They're like, what's a wolf? What? So it was hilarious watching this. And
my favorite was though when Vince thought, when we said Wood might be an otter, but we were still going back and forth, and Vince heard auditor. Like, that actually is probably the best classification of a video.
Yeah, the gay subclass of auditor.
He is, and still it's we're
auditor's night.
And obviously, Bill, Steve, and Brian kind of fit into the bear cub mode and stuff like that. And so they all just kind of look at me and they go, well, what are you? And I'm just like, fucking enigma. Like, I don't know. Just like,
and then when I said a daddy on a couple of them, and they're like, but you said he's a bear. And I'm like, you can be multiple things, gentlemen.
Just use it as a qualifier, or just plain daddy. There you go.
Yeah. But going back to I just have to say, going back to the late nights, somebody who grew up in, some orbit of New York City nightlife, 2 o'clock last call is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
I was glad when 1 o'clock hit. I'm like, okay, I can go sleep, because no matter what, I wake up at my normal time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was still waking up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm like, well, shit, I got 3 hours of sleep. I guess I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And we did.
Cut to montage.
Gym montage. Swimming.
Yeah.
At night.
I went for a good run. I enjoyed getting to go out and run in Charlotte. That's one of my favorite things to do when I go to different cities, is just go like run through the city and see stuff. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
I also like being in a city where there's outdoor pools at hotels. It's enjoyable.
I wish I had have gotten to go enjoy the pool. I brought a bathing suit that I never got to put on.
Oh, well, I think next time we definitely need to be in the same hotel. I think that's one of the things that it was a little bit tough for Bill and me because we were at
particularly on
different
Friday night, because there was part of us wanted to go, and then part of us was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if we're all in the same hotel, it's nothing to just walk upstairs.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
Or even like
Brian,
across the street. I mean, I don't even think it has
Yeah.
to necessarily be, but we were like a little too far away for the spur of the moment decision stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian and I had briefly had this conversation. I've looked up like places in the area to go there. I would almost like to maybe plan on, instead of staying at the Westin again, there are a couple different Airbnbs that are in that area, right?
Yeah.
And I almost like the idea of getting an Airbnb that can accommodate 4 or 5 folks and just doing that there, because there were several times that we were all like, oh, should we go there? Do we go down to the bar? Whatever. And honestly, I think if we had a decent sized Airbnb that we could just say, hey, look, swing by a liquor store, grab a bottle of the drink of your choice, come by, we're going to spend the night here. I'll cook. I would love to do that. I was actually talking to Vince about this. I would love to do this where we rent a place that has a smoker. I will forego going to a con where I will just spend the day doing the smoker and then have everybody come over, and like I will have cooked ribs or brisket.
Caleb
or
has
something
been
like
to my
that.
house. I will cook for some motherfuckers.
Yeah, and
Caleb,
I would love that.
Caleb, the Westin had a humongous grill. I saw when I was walking over, like hidden, like up against the wall by the restaurant on that patio. I was like,
yeah,
I didn't see it till Sunday because I'm like, Caleb would have been out there cooking all weekend.
would have loved to. Yeah, would have loved to, right? Just to have everybody over, feed everybody, do that.
But there were a couple times we crashed in Caleb shared room with multiple people. Like multiple of us were just in there sitting on the floor shooting the shit for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was great.
All right,
And
we're almost at like an hour here.
Yeah.
Want to show off some stuff we got? I mean, we know we've.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because even those of us who didn't get something definitely got something. So
Yeah.
I mean, we saw examples of the
omnibus.
omnibus. What else?
Yeah.
What else got picked up?
I'll kick us off. So the one non kind of, I mean, it's quasi comics related, but the one non comics related thing I got is I found, y'all know I'm a big fan of gargoyles. I found this beautiful gem. That is Elisa Maza, who is the human character in The Girlfriend of Goliath. It's the NECA figure. Looks really cool. Let me see if I can get you a shot there. It also has Brooklyn's closed wings. I don't know if you can see, but up there in my office, that's all of my like I've got the full set of Gargoyles action figures that live up there, and so I get to add that to the list. And that's the one kind of non-paper thing that I really brought home, which is an action figure. So I thought it was really cool.
That's neat.
Well, I spent
Is
money.
that the last one that they're coming out with, or are there more?
No, there's more. There's still more to the line.
Okay.
I spent money on one thing, and I don't know if Kevin Quass is watching because I know he usually does, but it was something for him. He pinged me beforehand and was like, hey, if you see the Magic Limited Series, which was funny because we talked about it last time I was on, pick that up for me because you always say it's so good. I was walking to a table with Hassan like on Saturday or Sunday, and like 20 feet away, I see, they got all the long boxes on the table, but under it, and they were not displayed very well, was just little piles of whole sets, and Magic was, I was like grabbing it, and I knew exactly where Kevin was, so I paid for that real quick and ran and gave it to him and came back. But I was actually gifted 2 things from the same person. So Sunday night, I said I met Tim in the bar, and at one point he gave me an original drawing that he did of Magic that he drew and colored. So
gorgeous.
Going in my small pile of Magic OA. And then he gave me this, a pen silent issue. Well, there's like 2 word balloons in it. And it's very cartoony in style, but it's fun to read. I could it just looked like a cartoon to me, and you could hear the sound effects as the dude's like stumbling through his art heist and getting slung around and falling off stuff. It was a fun little book.
Yeah, Brian, can you just give the title for the benefit of the people listening?
Jacques and the Great Art Thief.
Okay, great. Thank you.
again, it was a quick little read, but completely silent, but totally fun. So those were the two things I came home with.
Two things.
What would you,
Steve,
Bill?
why don't you go?
Oh, okay. So I like everything that I tend to pick up is either really cheap trades that I find that I've been, trying to get, or some interesting, fun original work. And this is a sort of a preview comic, and I think Bill, you've got one too.
I got a different
from Kayla E. Yep. Yeah. So Kayla E has her series Precious Rubbish, and if you pre-ordered her book from Fantagraphics, she threw this one in, and it's again, it's a mostly silent comic as well, very cartoony in the style of sort of Popeye, and there is a particular character that she uses in all of her as to represent herself. But it's very interesting, really cool, as well as kind of sad and funny comic from her. Also picked up Cosmic Cadets Contact from Ben Crane and Andy Alvis. And then also found this, and interesting, because I was looking for European comics, but I like the collections more, so I was able to find an IDW published translation. This is by I can never remember his first name, but Sultan Patos, who is a Belgian writer who's known for several other books like in the Obscure Cities series. So this one I was really excited to find, and it's hard to find in translation anyway, so excited to be able to pick it up. And then, of course, I finally got my Athena Voltaire compendium, and that was happy. So, okay. From Steve himself.
Well, I'll start off on this, Steve Bryant. I actually did get a piece of original art, which is rare for me, but it was the first time I've seen him have the web comic pages from Athena Voltaire. So I picked this page up, which is I think it's like the first arc. I'd have to take a look. Maybe Steve, you can look at the compendium where this comes in. And it looks like Caleb is going from his bag to present something he got from Steve as well. So
I am. Y'all keep it going, and I'll get it out.
Okay,
that's what he said.
I did want to say I did pick up something too from a friend of Caleb's as well. I Want You for Space Force, which is a very so this is a very interesting thing to kind of have in the South, because you never know what kind of constitution some of the fans or looky-loos are going to have coming by and seeing something like this. But it was hilarious. Obviously, it was great, and he did a nice little. Just a little sketch for it.
Yeah, so I should say that friend is Rich Woodall, who is a great guy. Grew up in Arkansas. I was introduced to him through my former podcast co-host Craig, still friend, but and Rich and I have developed a great relationship. He's done several pieces. I actually got a piece of art from him too. But I'm glad you were able to pick that up, and it's a super fun.
Where is he? There he is. You mean this Craig?
Yeah, there's Craig. Yeah, that's Craig. That's his doodle. I picked up, on the same vein as Bill, this amazing page from Steve Bryant, which again is an Athena Voltaire page. I love storytelling, and so I saw this and I was like, hey, that's neat composition. I just kind of fell in love with it. I want to own that, so I picked it up. So
all right. And staying with the former guest, I did pick up a couple of prints from Mayday Trip. The first is this Justice League International version of the Amalgam characters, which I just love. And then he also did a recreation of Secret Wars 8, but this time with Spider-Boy. So that was nice. Caleb, cool. I don't know if you made it back to that booth for this book. I know you were talking about it. I did pick up The Invisible Men, which is the trailblazing black artists of comic books.
Yeah, I never did. I wanted to go pick that up.
All right. Hopefully you'll have a chance to. It's a Yo Books. I didn't realize it was a Yo Book. So hopefully you'll have a chance to get to that. In terms of back issues, it was a great show for back issues. I did pick up two big ones. Well, big ones for me. Adventure 381, which was the start of Supergirl's tenure in the book as the solo series. At the peak of the series, this book was like going for crazy amounts. It's come down some now, but been looking for that at a decent price. And also this one I got for a song, World's Finest, number 142, which is the origin of the composite Superman. So got those. I started whittled, I got a few more Blackhawks in my quest to. I'll never have a complete version of it, but I think I might be able to get DC complete in Blackhawks. Now, it won't be quality complete, but it will be DC complete. You get like really esoteric stuff. I got from Peter Pan Records. I got a book and set record from the late 70s, The Amazing Adventures of Hollow Man. And the art here is by would be familiar names to some comic book people, Joe Giella and Bob Larkin. I imagine it's Larkin paints over Joe Giella. Peter Pan Power Records were the entity that did the book and records of Marvel and DC heroes, and here they branched out into their own. Always get a Tom Kelly cat. So this year I got Spider-Gwen. And in terms of, Caleb, you had mentioned something about non-comics, and sometimes you clean up with that. So I got these. These are movie programs from the 70s. They would be on sale when a movie was in the theaters, as a souvenir. I got the one for Battlestar Galactica, and I got the one for Saturday Night Fever. And the Saturday Night Fever is really cool because it comes with a flexi disc with selections from the soundtrack.
You played it?
No, but when I do, I will have to place a coin in this spot so that the record does not slip.
Okay.
We found a Goonies one of those in Japanese for our friend Anthony because he's doing a Goonies podcast.
I saw that.
The only toy pickup I had, Amazing Heroes, which is an imprint from Fresh Monkey Fiction. They have this line, Amazing Heroes, which has the Secret Wars, superpowers ish, Star Wars ish, 3 3/4 size figures of either public domain figures or independent figures in their line. So I got the one of the Fawcett character Bullet Girl. I don't think I ever thought I'd be holding a Bullet Girl action figure in my hand, so had to have it.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's the other stuff,
Oh yeah. There's.
But that's just.
I didn't get a lot, but I got more.
So I grabbed. I won't show off any more OA. I grabbed a few pieces. Got a really cool J. Jonah Jameson from Wilfredo Torres, and it's flat top, short beard, angry, screaming. I was showing it to Roger, and he looks at me and kind of gives me a look. I'm like, "What?" He was like, Is that Hitler? I'm like, no. Like, he just looked at me like he's ashamed to know me, and I'm like, what? And he's like, why did you pay someone money for Hitler? And I'm like, it's J. Jonah James. No. So I had to like backtrack.
Everyone knows that. Hitler didn't smoke.
I was just like, ugh. So my friend, or our friend, I should say, David Price, gifted me with some stuff. He got me a small piece of art, which I love. It was great, but it's a Hulk piece. But also got me a couple of different books from Silver Sprocket, which is a little indie publisher that he loves, and I'm going to fall in love with.
Love Silver Sprocket. They're so good, so creative.
Yep. Viscera Objectiva by Hugo Limbo is a book that he gifted me. Adversary by Blue Delaquanti is another book, which is
Blue.
Yeah,
Blue is so good. Blue is so treasure.
This is amazing. So it's a story about a guy. I can get into it later, but it's just kind of a meet cute with a bear and a trans man. It's really cool.
I had no idea Blue was part of that imprint.
Yeah, man. This was the first Blue I've read, so I'm definitely a fan.
You have not? Dude, when you read
Human Star. Oh, Human Star.
Oh, Human Star.
It's
And
gonna get ordered
You
in
can,
short.
you can find our episode where we talked to Blue about it,
Yep.
where we interviewed Butter.
yeah,
Good stuff.
Uh,
I
Across
want to
the
get
Field of
I need
Stars.
to get that. I need to get that now.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
that
I'll
one-
see if I can't. I'll see if I can't find you a copy and send it with the spare Rob Halford pop that I'm gonna get you. Picked up American Flag #1. Did not ever make it back over to get it signed.
Yeah.
I was really sad by that. But I did get it, so I've got that. Got some Savage Sword of Conan. Just as the only one I
Nice.
bought, just because the magazine size, and that was Brian's fault. I picked up a nice, heaping helping. Not a lot, but got some Airboy. So I told you I was going to look for Airboy. Grabbed some Airboy. Found some issues of Alias that I did not have, so grabbed that. Little Bendis action, some Michael Gatos. I am still looking for a copy. I don't know if you all remember this, but back when the movie came out, or just after the movie, after Bram Stoker's Dracula came out, Topps Comics put out a series of Dracula, and it was written or it was kind of worked on by Mike Mignola. Do y'all remember that at all? It was Roy Thomas.
I wasn't reading comics then, so no.
Yeah, Roy Thomas, Mike Mignola did a version of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and when it came out, they were polybagged, right? It's a 4-issue series. I've got the 3-issue series in the polybag, but I don't have the 4th issue. So I found the 4th issue and I picked it up. I still need the polybag version though. I want all 4 polybagged, but it's Mignola, right? Doing that. But they also had a subsequent series that was Roy Thomas and Esteban Maroto. That was also
That I
Vlad.
did know about.
So I
did know about, yeah.
I got all 3 issues of it. And then last but certainly not least, I should say, is, well, I also got some cool Defenders, but that's neither here nor there. But via Brian and his search engine self, just a whole lot of Marvel Comics Presents that.
Now, I will say some of those were the pickups from last year that I forgot to mail you, where they went back to Heroes to be delivered to you. We got them at this Hero.
I'm not going to complain since you did get them, since you got them for me and everything. And I will say this, guys, it makes me feel like a crap person, but like when I don't think about like just buying things for other people. I don't know why, which is just weird, right? Because everybody you all give me stuff, and I'm just like, oh, I should have thought about that. And I just don't. Like, I just get excited about seeing folks. And so I really got to do a better job about that too. Because I love my friends and I want to give you guys things. I just never happen to think about it. And I always feel kind of like a dumpling, right? I'm just like, oh man.
A dumpling.
Caleb, in the past, I've gotten Vince and Dap some of the polybag Ray Bradbury presents from Topps from 50-cent bins around here. So I'll take a look and see if Dracula's among the Topps cash at one particular store.
Nice.
Yeah.
One thing I did forget to mention, I think, and Bill, if you want to show
mine's over there. I got crypto.
That's cool. Yeah. So Andy Elvis. Andy Elvis, who did the art on Cosmic Cadets by Ben Crane.
You're never gonna get
Crane. Drew this really wonderful Starro, which I thought was really just really cute. Just like in 30 minutes was like throw something out. And then of course Bill got a really cool crypto. But yeah, I'm not an original art person, but it is nice when somebody takes the time to just do a quick sketch for just buying a book or saying hi.
Bill, didn't you get that shirt at the con too that you're wearing?
I got this, speaking of gifts, I got this courtesy of Steve, and it was quite the hit. Many people asking.
Oh yeah, a lot of people
people commenting. It's for benefit of people listening that can't see this. It's the meddling kids, like a Beatles logo, and it's the kids from Scooby-Doo effectively walking on Abbey Road. Yeah.
Steve also got me a shirt. Had I gotten home in time, I'd be wearing it.
You need to remove these sleeves first, though. I think that's mandatory.
That's fair. I do want to give a shout out since we did talk about some indie books. I did not buy this at a con, but yet again, it was gifted to me by one of the creators himself. So I'm fortunate enough to be friends with a guy named Tony Esmond, who is he's from across the pond. He's done a lot of good work with some amazing people to produce some indie comics and stuff like that. Also does a podcast that is fairly large, that people know about over there. Has some great guests, but he knows and works with a lot of like the 2000 AD folks, and right. So just a kind of a brilliant guy, good to know and fun stuff. Gave me a comic of his, and he writes just kind of just lowbrow humor, smut, right? Like this despicable, just filth. It's wonderful. I love it. Right. Gifted me a copy of his latest kind of project, which is Cockney Kung Fu. So it's Tony Esmond, and then one of his partners in crime, one of his cohorts, a guy named Cliff Cumber, who is an amazing. I love Cliff, who is British but lives in Maryland now. We were having breakfast, and he had a Polaroid camera, and I don't know if you can see this. He snuck a picture of me eating a pastry. So I got a Polaroid of me stuffing my face with carbs from Cliff Cumber.
Yeah, he took a Polaroid of me too, but I didn't get the picture. I think Tony wouldn't let him have his phone camera out, so he was carrying the big giant Polaroid.
It was good times. I like Tony. I like Tony a lot, and Cliff is a gem.
That's awesome. Oh man,
All
I think we've exhausted
Yeah.
HeroesCon 2024. And speaking of exhausted, I think we're all still exhausted from it, but
Facts.
but definitely looking forward to 2025 already. So
They posted the date.
they did post the dates, and in fact, I think
It's the
posted
week-
a poster.
The week
It's
after.
the
it's not
week
Father's Day.
after Father's Day this time,
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
which
Yeah.
hopefully will not coincide with the week that my job has a major convention.
Yeah, so Caleb did not say that just like tonight,
Oh,
he,
that's his 25.
just like tonight, he showed up to the convention after flying from Arkansas in a full sports suit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
full suit,
Yeah.
looking all fancy.
Went straight from teaching CLEs to looking at comics. So
Which is the best way to do it, really.
in a tie.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have some bandwidth left. So why don't we talk about a comic that we recently read that we dug? Sound good?
I guess we could. Yeah.
Let's do that. We're
Yeah.
known for it. All right. Let us start with our esteemed guest, Brian. Brian, tell us about a book that you recently read that really tugged at your heart.
All right. Well, Steve said we're done with HeroesCon, but we're not because mine ties right in.
Oh.
Yeah. So Scotty Young is always at Heroes, and I sort of made a fool of myself 2 years ago and redeemed myself with him this year. Was in the bar by myself in the corner. He was the only other. He was there talking to another creator. I was just looking at my phone, having a drink, waiting for dinner. They start talking, and then they start talking about Tennessee, which is where I'm from. They see me laugh at something. I interject. We have a whole good conversation. But during this, the conversation steers to Scotty's new book with Jorge Corona, the team that did Middle West. Ain't No Grave. Issue 2 came out last week, but we had a whole conversation about issue 1. I had not read issue 2 at that point. I read it the next morning. But during it, I was like, oh, we talked about it on my podcast. My co-hosts love this book. And Steve, I think I sent you some artwork. I don't know if you've got it. So that's the cover of issue 1. Flip through the next one. Or did you load them? Nope.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So there was a couple images, and during it, I said, hey, there's this image. Actually, one more, and then we can go back to that one. Yes. There's this image of this giant creature in it that reminded me of the lady from Labyrinth after the masquerade's over, and she's got all the junk on her. And he starts laughing. He goes, that's my second favorite movie. My first one's Never Ending Story. And then we keep talking about the issue. And go back one. So you see the trees and the horse.
Mhm.
He's like, we had a whole conversation about it. I was like, the horse wouldn't go through the trees. He goes, where do you think that was from? And I look at him and go, the never-ending story. The horse wouldn't go through the statues. So
Yep.
I know I'm not talking about the story, but in and of itself, it's kind of this weird mystical Western. The main character used to be a bandit, and she's settled down with a family at this point. But she starts coughing up blood, which, you know, in any movie or book is never a good thing. And she's dying. She's just got a couple months to live. Well, she's gonna go find death and fight him and make sure she doesn't die, is basically what the premise ends up being. But she's got a coin that gets her into the town, kind of an underworld, where death is. And the first issue, the art tells a lot of the story. And Scotty and I were even talking about that, because the pages I've sent Steve, that if you're on the video, you can see there's no word balloons at all. Now, I'm not saying there's words throughout the book, but a lot of the art tells a story. And Scotty said, yeah, one of the criticisms was people didn't think a lot happened. I was like, are they freaking blind? Like, a whole shit ton happened in this book. And he's like, yeah, have you read the second issue yet? I said, no, it just came out yesterday. I'm here at Heroes now. I hadn't had a minute. He's like, oh, there's a lot more action in issue 2. And that issue is crazy, fighting in this Midwestern or Western town that's pretty well the underworld, of her fighting her way through it, because she shouldn't be there, but she's got a coin that lets her enter. And she is fighting all these, I don't know if they're dead or what, but all these people in this underworld area, and it is full of action. It's the exact opposite. And the page Steve pulled up now just to illustrate, you can see the sky there. The sun is black. And the sky is red, but she finds she can ride anything, and is an expert at riding horses, and she finds this crazy goat or bicorn, whatever you want, and uses it for her escape. And it's just a full page spread. I think that page is gorgeous, and it, you know, breaks the frame of the page itself. But it was good. And again, if you've ever read Middle West, this is the same team that did it. And it's a lot more. Middle West is great, but the tone on this, even though it's the same team, is a lot different. So if you get a chance, check it out. I'd highly recommend it. It's been fun for 2 issues so far.
We actually convinced a friend of ours to pick up Middle West at the show. Our friend Philip got him to grab it and stuff. And you're not wrong, right? I've flipped through issue 1. I've still got issue 1 and 2 in the back to actually need to sit down and read. But Scotty is letting Jorge Corona do the singing in this, right? He is telling he's still writing the story. It's you know, one of the things I love about comics, and you mentioned silent comics earlier, is that you do get a full, robust narrative with the art and stuff. And, you know, just the panel you show where the person is walking forward, you can almost hear that, right? You can hear the background Sergio Leone kind of music to it. And so it is absolutely telling a story. I don't understand people who need just everything spilled out for them in a visual medium. You know, I think you can let a lot of the story do the talking.
I didn't send Steve one of my favorite pages in issue 1. I just selected a few, but there is a silent page where she is a whole lot of it's her journey getting to this town, but it's a full page spread of just her. And the top quadrant, you can tell it's day. In the second one, you can tell the sun's starting to set, and slowly the panels get smaller, but it's still her full body, and the shading gets darker as you can tell the passage of time throughout the day of her traveling. And it's a beautiful page.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great storytelling technique through the art, obviously. But I like when they get creative with panels and time, and yay.
Well, Warren Warren Ellis is one of the best people in the medium that does this, who can write a whole robust narrative and just have the artist like not say a word on any of the pages. It's fascinating when you get to the craft perspective of it.
Yeah. Victor Rose actually had a question about that. The coin itself, in the narrative in the book, is it the coin to pay Karen to basically cross the Styx, or is it some kind of other?
No, it's a different coin. It opens up a canyon. Actually, that giant creature I showed, she gives a coin, and he opens a whole canyon. You would think it's the River Styx, but it is a coin pressed for this city called Cyprus, if I remember right, and it's the land of the dead. And she's not supposed to have the coin. We don't know how she got it, and that's one of the subplots, because she's told multiple times, you shouldn't have that coin. How'd you get it?
And for people who might be seeking this out, this is published by Image, right?
Yes, sir.
Image.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Over to you, Steve. Tell us about something you're reading that you're digging.
So I tried to look back through our episode summaries, trying to find the last time I talked about a Valiant book, and it has been at least 3 years. So
used to be every fucking show.
Not every show. Yeah,
they used to be very fucking
They
good.
used to be really good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But
And they
seriously,
kind of
I think it's been 3 years since I've read.
we had at least a 4-month period where every week we were talking about a Valiant book.
Oh yeah. Well, for a while I was actually reading every single thing that they put out.
Me
on
too.
a monthly basis. So
I read every single thing for much longer than I should have.
yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, there were series that just probably were kind of better left unspoken about. And one of them I think was Bloodshot Unleashed. It was kind of in one of the later throes of Valiant before they sold to Alien Books, or at least had their agreement with Alien Books to then be published under there. And so I didn't really enjoy it at all. But interestingly enough, I have still been getting the Valiant books now that they're once again being solicited under Alien. And so I've been reading Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded, which, aside from a terrible title, is actually a pretty fun action book. And I think one of the reasons why it's a fun action book is the fact that it really draws from a lot of what Jeff Lemire was writing when he was doing Bloodshot. I believe it was Bloodshot Reborn was his series.
It was indeed.
Several years back. And I love that series. I never really liked the character of Bloodshot that much before. Just always just sort of struck as sort of like a Deathlock or something like that. Just a tortured, a war machine that is trying to find peace and or revenge, depending on who's writing him. And this series is interesting.
Punisher with Frankenstein's makeup artist.
Basically, yeah. So, and of course, drawn as beefy as freaking possible, depending on who is doing the cover art or the interiors. Miko Soyan's artwork, in Bloodshot Reborn and a couple other series of the Bloodshot series were just gorgeous. So Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded kind of picks up where Bloodshot Unleashed, I guess, ended, where a giant underground sort of test facility / prison / freak house was essentially was breached, and all of these experimental creatures and sort of super beings were released. And Bloodshot is trying to, in this series, go and either stop them, kill them if he has to, or just find a way to to normalize, to get them to stop what they're doing, because a lot of them were innocent people before they were taken and experimented on. And one of the interesting things here, like I said, the writers, because there are multiple writers depending on the issue. The first issue is written by Dennis Camp, and the second and third, and I believe the fourth, were written by Mauro Montella. with art pretty much between El Barrio Nuevo and Rodrigo Rocha. In these stories, he's actually drawing back a lot more to some of the Valiant of 5, 6, 7 years ago. So we're reintroduced to Magic, who is essentially Bloodshot's wife, a woman that he's rescued and then falls in love with, as well as their child Jessie, who does have the same nanites moving through her body. She also has created her own sort of companion that she uses to speak to her nanites, called Bloodpuss, who is just a kitty cat who's very sarcastic, as teenagers' internal voices tend to be. But in this Bloodshot as well, we're reintroduced to Bloodsquirt, which was a character that Jeff Lemire came up with as sort of like an evil, interior voice, cartoonish character that's always, pushing him to kill and give in to his sort of more animalistic, monstrous, killing machine side. It was fun seeing him again in this context, but also you can tell this is a lot more of a gore-based book. There's a lot of really disgusting things. We've got a character in these panels who's like ripping heads off of people, very clearly, just being a really horrible creature that he's trying to stop. But aside from the violence, there's a lot more of this dialogue. There's a lot more of the internal dialogue, for Bloodshot, but also between Bloodshot and Bloodsquirt that I've been missing, for the past several series that they've been putting him through, that I fell off on just because they weren't interesting to me. But this is interesting because there's a lot of moral quandary, moral, philosophy that's being discussed here.
Yeah, ambiguity.
Yeah, definitely. Like, what is he? The fact is, he's a war machine, a killing machine who just wants peace, and that's something that's going to be denied him.
They touch on it a bit in this series because I'm also reading it because again, it's got that Lemurian kind of draw to it. But there's also something about Bloodshot's cannibalism.
Yeah,
that's touched on here. That I think there's a lot there, and they explore that to a bit and to what that means and to what that says about him.
And that actually, I think it's very interesting because the voice, because there's two different writers on this, of course, but Dennis Camp in the first issue spends more time with the victims, with the people who are being killed, and their internal monologues and their histories and their stories, just as much as he is with what Bloodshot is going through. And that I think is fascinating, and also really personalizes it in a way that we haven't seen in any Bloodshot books, where it's just sort of like, let's kill a whole bunch of people and where's somebody who's extreme and has lots of things sticking out of them. Now there is some of that too. Like, some of these characters are pretty crazy. And of course, the third issue introduces us to a super Bloodshot called Omega, which was basically a giant, the brains in the fifth dimension kind of, character, as well as, being almost unbeatable or somehow possibly unbeatable. That's where the cliffhanger for issue 3 leaves off. And I believe fourth issue just came out this week. Or last week, but I would actually recommend this. Shockingly, like, I would recommend a Valiant book for the first time in, I don't know, 3-4 years. So pick it up if you like Jeff Lemire's Bloodshot.
I have a question about the covers. Do all of the Valiant Alien books have that corner box?
They are now.
They are now.
Yes, they do now. Yeah. There are some of the, I would say, sort of like the one-shot trade ones. Like Punk Mambo's new book, where it is not listed on the front. But there are ones like, and I do have, I've got some variant covers here, but you see Valiant and Alien books are together in the insignia. So
I can't remember if the Exo Manowar, the last Exo Manowar series, had it or not.
Invictus? Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think the last Valiant thing I picked up was that Archer and Armstrong one shot.
Yeah.
And at this point, what is that, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, about.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago. I think they pretty much just petered off. They had a few series, they finished them off, and that was it. They disappeared for a while they were in limbo.
I want to say I tapped out
Publishing.
at Dennis Hopeless's XO Man of War because
Yeah. Oh, that was a good. I like the start of it. I
I
did.
didn't.
I
It made me angry. I was like, this didn't make sense with anything that had gone before. The way he talked to the armor and stuff, it was just like, this is Iron Man. It didn't work for me. I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm finally out of Valiant.
XO is just not a
Interesting,
draw.
yeah.
Like I try to tap in every once in a while, but it's just not a draw for me. It's never been able to pull me in the way that Bloodshot will, the way that the the Harbinger books will, and I think like
Yeah.
that's what brought me into Valiant was that Harbinger, the Harbinger War series. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I love Harbinger because I think it's probably the closest thing to, they're mutants. The Psiots are kind of like the mutants of the Valiant universe. And they tell some interesting stories that you can't necessarily tell in the big two. So
Yeah.
hopefully they come back. It's hard to say. Valiant's just had an interesting history over the past 40 years. So 30 years, I mean, but it's.
And if I could
Fingers
throw
crossed.
a little classic Valiant here, this was
Yeah, there
a
you go.
pickup over at HeroesCon. The surprisingly elusive Shadow Man #3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, I'm real
Fine.
close to having everything from pre-acclaimed Valiant. I'm really close. Like there's some book like Harbinger #1 it's still pricey. But I'm really close.
It's funny you mentioned Acclaim Valiant. One of my favorite weird series that nobody knows about is Troublemakers. One of the it was kind of very close to Generation X in feel, but it was set in the Acclaim Valiant universe.
I like Troublemakers.
What is-
I also like Trinity Angels,
I didn't
which
read
also
that.
had like just a goofy feel to it.
I mean,
But-
Rafer Roberts, series kind of had that same feel too. It was it was the post Harbinger Wars, where it focused on the young Psiots. They went to that small town and infiltrated.
The thing was, I mean, to me, Archer and Armstrong was the most refreshing one because the original version was so deathly serious.
Yeah.
And to just turn that on its head.
Absolutely.
That's my
I don't-
favorite new Valiant.
I don't dislike Ninjak. I always thought Ninjak was kind of an interesting character, and there's some good series in there. It was on and off. I mean, like Bloodshot is my favorite, right? That we've but that's because I love Jeff Lemire, and I think what he did was great, and I think that it does kind of the universe does kind of culminate around Bloodshot as kind of this. I feel like Bloodshot's the heart of that universe, for the most part.
Oh, in 4001, he became the his nanites were sort of like
to me it's still Solar, but that's the part.
Hey,
but
not
we can't
Valiant
say
anymore.
that now. Yeah, I
I
probably
really
would,
like Turok.
I probably would agree with you. I probably would agree with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, if anybody's interested in picking up a Valiant series or is surprised that there is a Valiant series, and there's actually a couple that are coming out now this summer. Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded. It is a mouthful. It is a terrible title, but pick it up.
Yeah.
Give it
And
a
correct
shot.
me if I'm wrong,
Especially
Steve.
if you
There
like
have been
Lemire.
months without a solicit, right?
Months. Yeah, there was I think a period of like
Okay.
6 months with nothing.
Well, the last thing that they did was the Liam Sharp XO book, which was beautiful to look at, but convoluted as hell and just did not have a story there.
Was that Exo Unconquered? I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Or Invictus, maybe. Is that the new one? I don't know. I need to really check my piles to try and see.
You don't need to read that.
All right,
Oh.
Caleb. It looks like you can't have the mic right now, so tell us about something you're reading that you are enjoying.
I absolutely.
And I do
will,
have a
but-
picture.
Thank you. So that segues. I want to just start this off by offering you guys an apology, right? You guys work hard to put on a good show. We try to keep this together, but I was not prepared today, or at least I got lost in the stuff. So
Shut up.
the book that I want to read or talk about is the newest newest edition of, or I guess the second book of My Favorite Thing is Monsters, Book 2 by Emil Ferris. This was I think on the last show, this was the thing I was telling you guys I was super excited about. I did finally finish it. I have read it twice. Now it is fantastic. The book absolutely picks up. If you have read My Favorite Thing is Monsters Book 1, the book picks up right where the other book left off. It is an absolute segue, right? If you read the first tome, you know that they're like, Karen is this young person who lives in 1960s Chicago. She kind of has scoliosis, and I'm using she because I think she does identify as a she. I don't. Well, she identifies as a monster, right? So in her head, she thinks about people, especially people with physical disabilities or people who look different. She envisions them as monsters, right? And she's a werewolf, and that's kind of the way she thinks. She lives in a building that is owned by mobsters. Her brother does work for the mafia. There is a murder in the building. There's there's a lot to this that gets into Chicago history and art. It's all beautifully drawn by Emil Ferris on notebook paper using colored ink pens in a way that is just amazing, right? Like some of these are just really, really decompressed. Not a lot of realism there. That's just dealing with basic shapes and formations of colors and shading. And then some of them are just absolutely exquisite. Here's a good example, Steve. If you can go to just the regular thing, just almost photorealistic images of things that you would see in in a museum. If you were to go to the art museum, she draws some of the pictures that you see in the Chicago Museum of Art, including some by one of my favorite artists in the world. She gives you a vision of the portrait of Dorian Gray, which I think is fascinating. But the book again picks up after Karen's mom has passed away. Karen's mom had cancer, and so she is now a young girl living with her brother, who is an amazing brother to her, but is not a good person. In 1960 Chicago, where things are gritty, and she's befriended the streetwalkers, and she has a crush on another young girl, and her best friend is this young Jamaican trans girl, but was assigned male at birth, and so she's kind of built together all of these people, and she's trying to solve this murder of what happened to Anka, who was this woman who lived upstairs. And it just really gets into the meat and potatoes of how she visualizes the world and how she is a detective, and she wants to go through that and this adventure, and she pushes boundaries, and she goes places she's not supposed to, and she really does stumble upon the fact that there's some shady stuff happen here. And at the end of book 2, you realize that, hey, her brother might actually be the murderer. So it picks up there and it runs with that ball, and she is exploring this building. Some of this reminded me of like Only Murders in the Building, the TV show, right? Like there's passageways throughout this building, and she's working to solve this mystery. And at the same time, she's got Anka's journals, and Anka was a survivor of the Holocaust, right? And so Anka's talking about this, and so Emil Ferris will go back and to talk about Anka's experience and how she actually rescued kids from the Holocaust by kind of like working into human trafficking to a bit, right? So it was good deeds done weirdly and in a bad way, I think that we would think is abhorrent, but it saved these kids' lives to be able to pull them out of the little gas chambers and be like, no, we're going to keep you alive and as long as we can, but you're going to do bad things. And so it deals with these really despicable parts of humanity and the dark places that humans go, right? But in a sense that it's showing you that the monsters aren't the monsters, right? It's everything else in the world that's monsters, and it really explores that. Now there's a little bit of outside the box history with this. The Fantagraphics actually had to threaten to file suit against Emil Ferrell to get her to release stuff. Or I think they did file suit. I'm not sure how it worked out, but
yeah, they didn't threaten. They went ahead and did it.
Yeah, and because it's been 5 years since that first volume came out, and she just wasn't ready yet. COVID happened. There was a lot going on there, but she just wasn't releasing it. She said she had it finished, right? She said she had all this done and it was ready to go. I love this book. I think it's fascinating. I think it's award worthy. I think it will win awards. I think it's a treatise, right? I think it's wonderful to look at. I also don't think it was finished. I think that there are pages in here where you can clearly see that the work was not done. Like there's at least one page in here that has a blank panel, right? I think that the story takes a left turn at some point and just wraps itself up because it had to wrap itself up. While it does complete the storyline and it gives you a full picture of the story, it does so in a way that is not where I think the direction was going, right? And I could be completely wrong on this, but just as a reader, that's what I felt. I was like, okay, this felt rushed. This felt like you had frayed ends that you were tying up and loosening up, and you did so very creatively, but it did not match the tone and tenor of what the book was leading to. And so I do think that criticism is valid, right? I do think that there is work in here that is unfinished, but just for one reason or another. But this really is a treatise on character development, right? You are learning about all these peoples and you are learning about them warts and all. And in fact, the warts of them are what makes these people interesting. The mobster's wife who is obsessed with clowns, that's related to childhood trauma, the mobster himself, the brother who's killed his brother, and there's a father in the picture that is behind the scenes and doing terrible things. So it's a wonderful exploration of It's a wonderful exploration of Chicago, of the human condition. It's a wonderful exploration of global dynamics and how that led to from the 1940s into things that were happening in the 60s. It is counterculture. It is queer culture. If each chapter is framed by these homages to books like Ghastly and Arcane and the EC books, which this was really mapped and predicated on celebrating, right? So I just think it's wonderful work. I do think Emil Ferris is an absolute genius. I don't know if we'll ever see another piece of Emil Ferris work after this. I'll be curious to see if Emil Ferris does more work after this, or if this was just the thing that Emil wanted to make. But it is queer, it is funky, it is quirky and nerdy, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And I highly recommend people read both of these. It's one of my favorite things.
Well, the whole story about the Fantagraphics thing, the fight between them and Emil and trying to release a second volume the past 5 years. Because when she originally turned it in, it was 800 pages. It was a single volume.
Yeah.
And they just decided, I think it was between Fantagraphics and her agent and her, they decided to split it into two, probably because they could make a little bit more money on it originally. I'm sure that was kind of, Fantagraphics' original thought on it. But that's also, an 800-page tome is hard to sell as a first book, as a first work. But they split. They had the 500 pages for the first one, and then they had an extra 300 pages already completed of what was going to be the second volume. And when they sent it back to Emil for revision, she basically was like, I kind of want to take this in a completely different direction now. I don't know what to, this isn't how I envision it now, that these 300 pages are going to actually count. Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. Let me see. Hold on. I think I can blow you up a little bit there. Maybe.
So the wonderful thing that she does in this is she will actually go sit in the Museum of Art and draw those pieces for this book in pen. And she just goes from cartoons to just a reproduction of fantastic art, man. It's such a cool thing.
It really is gorgeous. It just her recreations are great. But yeah, I haven't gotten it yet. I keep seeing it in stores now, and I'm like, I have to pick it up. I have to get it. But yeah, that's next on my list.
Okay. Oof. All right. I'm going to refer back to HeroesCon for the book that I'm going to talk about because it's where I picked it up. The version of the cover I have is a Mayday Trip variant, and this is Bloodscar Megazine.
Nice.
Written and drawn by Jason Horn. Steve, you have the graphic up there. Yep. So you can see there the dude with all the pouches is obviously a Cable variant. And the early years of Image were very much made up of characters like this. And this is very much an homage and a love letter to very early Image. And you can see his adversary there. What you can't see from the version you have there, but I can show it here, is there's a bit of a cape to the other character there. And the other character is the Spurned, which refers to, at least makes some allusions to a particular Cape character that Todd McFarlane created for Image. So what happens in Bloodscar Megazine? If you can go to that first graphic, Steve. So you see him in action. Time to eat gun plasma, you soggy dick skins. So he's in action there. And what Bloodscar does is he travels through time killing Nazis from various eras.
Noble cause.
A very noble cause. And when he shoots them, it's not a rat-a-tat-tat. Steve, if you can go to that next graphic, what we got from his gun is a shatoom. So that's happening, but at the same time, he's kind of breaking the time-space continuum with his hopping forward and back to kill Nazis. And this brings in the Spurned. Steve, if you can go to the next, the Spurned here is, it's no secret you've seen Spawn without the mask on, so it's real close here. Rejected by both heaven and hell and endowed with power from both, I am the Spurned. So what he wants to happen is, it's actually also having an effect on his lifespan, that he wants the time travel device that Bloodscar has. And of course, Bloodscar being a pouch wearing cable variant, he's not going to give it to him. So they battle it out a little bit. Steve, if you can keep going, eventually the Spurn disappears, but this is something that Bloodscar knows he needs to address. And how does he do it? He forms a team, and they are the Scar Corps, a multiverse band of your strongest variations, hell-bent on saving all time. The actual page count in this is very small. I want to say maybe 12 pages. We also have ads in them. Steve, if you can go to the next volume here. If you remember Image ads, there would very often be like Entertainment Earth or other comic vendors. Some of the titles here are so goddamn funny. Fuck Force, Night Cop Nightstick, The Spectacular Skank, Crotchamageddon 90. And of course, there's a Minimal Spurned, yeah. And then
Flame,
yeah. So I would read every one of these magazines. And if you go to the bottom, they have the takeoff of the old Comic Book Greats VHSs that featured mostly the Image creators, but also people like Stan Lee and John Romita. And seeing that, I had to see if I still had some. And Comic Book Greats, you can see that here. This is Todd McFarlane and Liefeld creating Overkill, and then another version with Liefeld. Benefits of showing off being a pack rat. And then if you can go to the next one, this is the thing I'm most looking forward to. Just like early Image had that those coupons you could redeem. It was like a stupid amount. It was like 6 or 7 books, right? That you can get like an Image number 0. Here you can send in the copy. No, not the copy. You actually have to remove the coupon. And with $6, you can get a copy of Bloodscar number 0. And that's definitely on my agenda. So if you can find this, the gentleman's name is Jason Horn. He has a presence online. The comic book company is 90s Comics. But if you're in the mood for a really clever and funny Image pastiche, I don't think you can do worse than Bloodscar Megazine.
It kind of reminds me of Skilly a little bit. Not direct, but there's some in there.
Well, I'm trying to think. There was, I know there was the Morrison written Doom Force. Image had its own Spitting Image.
Yeah.
But there's another whether it's like Local Man or some of the other stuff, this isn't trailblazing ground, let's put it that way. But it's nice that it's done well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well,
It's fun. I do like these.
yeah, and Steve, you got a copy too, right?
Yeah, I did. Donny Cates, do you mean crossover?
Yeah.
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 I have a problem with crossover. That hits a button for me. So fuck crossover. But
Wow.
no, really. I mean, I had a big problem in equating being a comic book fan in that book to the struggles of African American people in the civil rights, the struggles of gay people. It's a false equivalent, and it soured me from literally like 9 pages in. It's an irresponsible. I think that element of the book is irresponsible.
Well, there was that gap of time before. I think it was between issue 7 and 8, something like that,
Like out there,
where it wasn't published for a bit, and a lot of that was a very personal thing with Donny Cates. So he does actually at the last couple of issues are just basically him just apologizing for everything. Very personal.
Shouldn't have had something to apologize for. There's ways you can tell that story without that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Crossover. I should get a shirt.
Fuck crossover.
All right. Well, we're almost up against it. So, in terms of Geek Gets, does anybody have anything to show off? Because this sort of was a Geek Gets show. I have something. Caleb has something. So, if we could get through those real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, the one I did go see the Frank Miller documentary. Got a little poster for it. It was great. He actually talks about his battles with addiction, which was interesting to see. And then I'm gonna pull a Steve and show off a poster that I got.
Hey.
It's the DC Pride poster.
It's right behind Steve right now.
So,
Got it right there.
with artwork by David Taliski. I just thought it was.
It's gorgeous. It really is gorgeous.
Dude, the Apollo in a Speedo is just fucking just.
I thought it was always Midnighter, Caleb.
Oh, it is. It's
I'm
both
more
of
of a
them.
Midnighter.
I
Midnighter
would
is
love to be
Speedo.
in between them.
All right. Real quick, I followed up Heroes with going to a concert because on me, I saw the Church and the Afghan Wigs. I picked up a vinyl copy of the last Afghan Wigs album. God, black covers will kill you with trying to take a picture. And this is their 2022 album, How Do You Burn? Have not picked up Afghan Wigs on vinyl since 1993, so it's nice to get that. And then Steve and I, before we made it up to Charlotte the first day in Winston-Salem, he takes me to this place that he took me last year, McKay's, and it's I really wish we had those up there. And
Caleb has been to McKay's. There's a giant one here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would haunt it regularly. And I picked up this book. The Beatles Are Coming, The Birth of Beatlemania in America. It basically covers a 2-week period. The period from when they landed at it wasn't JFK at that time. Do you remember what? Oh, forget it. What JFK was before it was JFK?
Nope.
Yeah, it was something else before JFK. Yes, it was. It was an operation in February '64.
Okay.
They wouldn't have. Let's not worry about it. Anyway, an airport in New York City. So this basically covers that period, and it's really extensive and really well researched. But it also has a kind of breezy narrative to it. It's really well written. So, Wolves of the Week.
And how much was that? Didn't you get it for like
$1.50?
Jesus.
$1.50 list price on it. $29.99.
Yeah,
$1.50.
McKay's, the place for treasure.
Yeah.
If you're willing to dig.
You have to dig.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, with hand sanitizer. Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar where we woof at something which may be comic or comic book related, but it also may be a TV program or a film or charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or possibly viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week is actually something that Bill, you and I saw or watched after we got back from HeroesCon, and we were spending a very, very lazy recuperating Monday at the house. And that is the documentary Enter the Clones of Bruce, directed by David Gregory. This is actually a documentary about all of the clones of Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee films that just sort of exploded onto, into Hong Kong cinema, Taiwanese cinema, Korean cinema, and then, of course, all across the world after 1973, after Bruce Lee passed away. And I loved how this was set up. The great thing is they gave the history of Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee films and his rise in popularity. And then at his death, then we get the opening credits because, hey, this just sort of sets up everything for, how Bruce Lee got so popular so quickly in a very condensed, like 15 minutes. But then afterwards just goes into all of the Bruce Lee clones, all of these actors and martial artists that were brought in to make films, either starring as Bruce Lee, as a mythological version of Bruce Lee, or as the brother, or the son of the son, or the cousin of Bruce Lee, and in some cases the sister of Bruce Lee, with names like Bruce Lai, Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee, all these things. It was fascinating, and they were able to find a lot of these actors today and interview them, and it was just very eye-opening. The Lee exploitation or Bruce exploitation films that happen after this. And it's just I think that I wish they had spent more time with Linda and with the family. They did mention that and how the effect this had on the family, that they couldn't capitalize on Bruce Lee's name or likeness because here are all these clones, but also just every day going to the cinema and seeing a new Bruce Lee, the true story, film coming out. But yeah, it was fascinating. And thanks to Bill for actually telling me about it, because I didn't have any idea before he let me know that it was out there to find. And
it added at least 6 movies I want to see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just going down the list, man. There's
including
also
Game of
Bruce
Death.
Lee was
I've
really
not
hot.
seen Game of Death in like 30 years.
I
want to see like the unvarnished 78 version of Game of Death with all the nonsense that went on with the release. So I do want to see that.
It reminded me how hairy Chuck Norris's shoulders used to be before they realized, oh no, we can wax them and put them in Delta Force.
Right. But the one thing I was not aware was there were scenes from Game of Death that were filmed before Enter the Dragon. That I was unaware of. I thought it was after. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in a very short dressing gown, I guess.
It's like it's a shiki. Yeah. All right.
The shiki that comes up to just
yeah. All right, let's go over to Brian. Brian, what is your wolf of the week?
The Boys season 4 came out the night before we left for Heroes, or the night we got there. My husband was mad he had to wait. Like The Boys, it is more of it. I laugh that there's articles out there about people being pissed that The Boys is woke this season. I'm like, y'all been watching? Like, Homelander ain't the hero, people.
they're doing it's getting review bombed. Like, it's got it like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that. Like, it's like they just realized that they're the butt of the jokes 4 seasons later, and now they are doing the internet thing where they review bomb them.
The poor dears.
I know it's terrible.
Poor flames.
The first 3 episodes came out at once. I think episode 4 came out today. Haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, but it is more over the top action, and my favorite scene involves a multiple man character, a sauna, and a case of pink eye.
Gosh.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
I will not spoil any more, but just use your imagination.
Okay.
Is it any more shocking than the season 3 opener?
No. This is just dirty gay fun. But
Yay. And Bill, Victor actually did some research. The facility opened in 1948 as New York International Airport and was commonly known as Idlewild Airport. Following the assassination of Kennedy in 1963, the airport was renamed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was
Thank
as
you.
early as 1963 that they renamed it, but I always thought that was a longer process.
That would have been pretty quick from November.
From November to February. But all right, let's go over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
My woof of the week goes out to the amazing humor of some amazing friends of mine. So in our comic book circles, we have got little group chats and we've got a Slack channel. And on one of those Slack channels, we share memes because it's what we do as a community and we have fun with it. I am apparently notorious for sharing memes that have been shared before, and we call that recycling. So
no.
my friends,
You were notorious for sharing a meme that was shared 2 up immediately 5 minutes before you shared it.
And I'm also not completely convinced I didn't see it up there. Think, oh, that's cool. Let me go share it, and copy it, and then repost it. Like, it's a thing, right? I don't pay attention a lot of times to little things like that. But my friends, Flippa and Ray, decided they were going to celebrate the meme channel and my recycling, and they got me the 11 o'clock comics meme recycling chain of, I don't know what we want to call it, but I had to wear this to the
size of a Flavor Flav clock.
Yeah, it's basically a hubcap around my neck that has the recycling meme and the name of the podcast and stuff on that. And they gave it to me, and I had to wear it at the Weston Bar all weekend. And so I was just walking around in this thing all weekend because I share recycled memes constantly, and I 100% deserve it. And it was absolutely hilarious. And I will gladly be the butt of that joke. So my wolf of the week goes out to my amazing friends who have great senses of humor.
All right. Let's go to myself for my wolf of the week. The date that we are recording this is Thursday, June 20th. And Thursday, June 20th, 1975 was the premiere of Jaws.
Yeah.
So there we go.
No.
Yep. So we're 49 years of Bruce the Shark and the denizens of Amity, New York. I don't know what to say to people who've never seen this. But if you want to rewatch it, or possibly watch it for the first time, it just doesn't compute. I think right now it's on Amazon Prime and it's on Hulu. It tends to be on multiple services. I wouldn't be surprised if there's another cycle where it appears free on Tubi and Roku, with Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and Jaws 4: The Revenge in the mix there too. But it's a perfect movie, and everybody should see it many times in their life. And that's my wolf of the week, Jaws.
Be great if they didn't reelect the mayor. It would be great if they did not reelect the mayor that told everybody to go swim with the murder machine. That's awesome.
That's only revealed in Jaws 2.
No, I realize that, but it's a metaphor for the world we live in. Don't reelect the murder mayor.
No.
Don't reelect the murder fish mayor guy. Don't do it.
Well, it can't happen. It can't possibly happen again.
Happen again.
What are the odds?
Somebody who has felonies, right? It can't happen.
Don't reelect the murder guy.
All right. I guess we're wrapping this up. Brian, thank you again for joining us on short notice. We very much appreciate it.
Always fun.
And we'll look forward to seeing you in Baltimore. At least 2 of us, it seems. And next year at Heroes as well, I guess. Yeah. All right. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on social media access sites like Blue Sky and Threads, and X, and Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts, through Libsyn, and many of the other podcatching platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back. We'll actually be back, I think, in 3 weeks, because we will not be doing a July 4th show because it's someone's birthday.
Hey, and happy Pride and happy Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy Pride and happy Juneteenth to everybody.
Yeah, I've been so active with Pride stuff this year. It's been different. It's been different. All right, everybody. Again, we'll be back probably in 3 weeks this time. Again, if you're listening to the audio version, you're going to have a wolf and explosion. We'll be back.
Wolf!